Today's spirit practice is all about water. It's part of a larger series where we are taking a look at our relationship with each of the elemental forces. And so I'm going to share a bit about water, working with the energy of water, and then I'm going to give you your spirit practice choices at the end. So as we take a look at water, we are reminded that shamanic practice is all about relationships. It's about relationships with the spirit world, relationships with the natural world, relationships with the earth, the elements, with our bodies. And a relationship is a two-way street, back and a forth, a give and a take. So when we talk about the elements and our connection with them, I really do encourage you to recognize that the elements are not just something that we observe and can be in awe of and respect, although we do all those things. They are energies that we can interact with. They're energies that live inside of us, as well as living and existing externally. So as we dive in today, I want to share that if we were to take a look at the indigenous view of the elements, each element falls into a certain category of the four quarters of the medicine wheel. Medicine wheel really is a practical and a metaphoric way of looking at all stages of life and everything that is related to it. There's more about it in the Earth video. And understanding the medicine wheel framework helps us to understand our relationship with the elements as an essential part of life. We're going to take a look at water today, and water falls in a certain quadrant of the medicine wheel and has different associations to it according to whatever tribal nation or tradition is offering a medicine wheel teaching. I am not offering medicine wheel teachings here. I'm just sharing with you a bit about the medicine wheel in knowing that it will help you to frame an understanding of cycles of life that include the cycles of the elements in reference to the larger picture of how we interact with all aspects of life. So I like to start practically. I know sometimes in some spiritual practices there's this focus on the mystical and the etheric, and shamanic practice has really taught me that the grounded, practical understanding of spirits, of elemental forces and energies is equally as important as some of the more cosmological, is that a word? Some of the bigger, more ethereal concepts. So I want to start with the basics. Water is a source of life. Water is a source of life. We are born in water, and we are born in water. I mean, I feel like I could just stop there. We spend the first 9 months of our lives in a sack that's filled with water. So our ability to relate to water is pretty inherent in our being, because the first 9 months of our life were shaped and held by water. Energy moves through water. Our bodies are made up of 75 to 80% of water. So understanding water is akin to understanding ourselves, because we are water and we play around in water for the first months of our lives. So more practical associations with water are that we work with it to cleanse, both in our house, in our bodies, outdoors, and we also cook with water. Water is essential for life. It's essential for birthing life. It's essential for cleaning life. It's essential for sustaining life. We can only go a short period of time without drinking water. So water really is everything, and it's everywhere, internally and externally. And water is a force, an energy, and an element that can be communicated with pretty easily. We'll talk about that at another time. So Energetically, water is connected with emotions, right? Everyone knows that. Water flows or it gets clogged up in a dam and is related to our emotions. It's also connected to the aspect of our lives where we explore intimacy, both with ourselves and others. It's also connected with nighttime and things that we keep hidden, things that are in the subconscious. Water changes form often, and it changes from liquid to steam. It can harden and turn into ice. It's amorphous, right? It changes all the time. Also is connected to the energy of movement, flow, and creativity, as well as introspection, prayer, and contemplation. Water is connected to the clouds and the thunder, as well as renewal, purification, mysteries, the moon. We know that the moon controls and influences the tides in the ocean. The moon controls the tides. Our bodies are made up of 80% of water, so we are influenced by the moon and the energy of the moon. You may be familiar with Masaru Emoto's work, a Japanese fellow who's crossed over now, but he did a lot of work on the hidden messages of water. If you're not familiar with him, please go check him out. He did experiments where he would speak different words to the water. And as he would speak different words to the water, he would measure the crystalline structure of the water. And sure enough, when kind words, supportive words were spoken to the water, the crystalline structure of the water created this beautiful pattern, was moved into a beautiful pattern. And when harmful words or mean words or bully words were introduced to the water, the patterns, the crystalline patterns were grossly distorted. So that's a great something to look into to learn about the effects that our consciousness has on water. As shamanic folks, we know that our interactions and relationships and communications with the water are felt and heard and carried through to all of the waters. Water is food bearing. How many peoples bring their food in from the sea, right? It gives life, it holds life, it sustains life. So much in the water. And I could stop there and we could be in awe of the water. And that would be enough, right? But I want to move on and talk a little bit about some different associations with water. Mythical, unseen, mystical associations. Now that we've talked about practical and emotional associations with water. So different traditions, different First Nations or indigenous traditions associate water with a color and a cardinal direction. And that really is depending, the color and the direction is depending on the different tradition. There's not one set translation that everybody uses. Sometimes water is in the west and the color associated with it is black. Sometimes the color associated with it is blue. Water is often associated with the season of fall. If you look up traditional medicine wheel teachings, you'll find a lot of different explanations and associations that could go more in depth than I'm going to go into or even need to go into here. Okay, so if we're going to move a little to the mystical, unseen associations with water, there is a lot of lore that has to do with water, and a lot of lore from all regions that has to do with human beings interacting with water beings. Some of them you may be familiar with, and some of them you might not. In shamanic practices and indigenous practices, the water beings are communicated with. They're listened to, and they're propitiated and honored. Offerings are made to the water spirits. In some traditions, it's believed that when the waters are rough or when there's a natural disaster that has to do with water, like a tsunami or something like that, that the water spirits have not been fed. So, in many traditions, the water spirits are fed and honored. But I want to talk about who you might meet when you're working with water, because making offerings to the spirits and communicating with the spirits of the water is something that you are capable of doing. And let's talk a little bit about who you might meet if you're working with the water. So there are beings who inhabit the water, and they're personifications of the water. In shamanic work, and we recognize that the elemental energies are sometimes too strong for us to interact with directly. So there's often an intermediary, or there's a being that is connected with the element, in this case water, that helps us to understand the water and to translate the messages in it. So they are our divine and semi-divine beings connected with the water. There are deities that are connected to the water that are from all regions. And the Greek folks, in Greek mythology, we recognize Poseidon. In Roman mythology and more, Neptune is a god of the waters. To the Celts in Europe, Danu, Boan, Lear, they're all deities of the water. Chinese and Asian lore and practices, I shouldn't say lore because that makes it seem like something that's made up. When I say lore, I don't mean something that's made up. I mean sort of like cultural, spiritual history almost. Dragon energies in Asian cultures. In Yoruba, there are deities like Oshun and Emaya who are water goddesses or water deities. Mesopotamia goddess Tiamat is associated with the water. And in Egyptian practices, Sobek, Nephthys, Osiris are all deities related to the water. So there are deities and mythological beings across the globe who are associated with water. And these are some of the beings that you may have already encountered or may encounter. A lot of times when we're young, we have encounters with elemental beings or spirits of nature, and because no one sat us down and said, this is a spirit of the water, we didn't really understand or weren't encouraged to interact with the elements in this way. In indigenous cultures and in shamanic cultures and in some pagan cultures, it's encouraged that you talk to the spirits of the water and the fire and the air. So mythical beings. A couple of them that I'm thinking of is to the Scottish and Celtic people, there are seal people that are called selkies. And there's a lot of lore about selkies and their significance in Celtic culture. What's the name of them? There's a movie called The Secrets of Rowan Inish, and there's lore in that about the Selkie beings. In Hinduism and Buddhism, there are beings that are called Nagas, and they're half human, half cobra, semi-divine beings that are propitiated and communicated with as part of a spiritual practice. To the Greeks, the water beings are naiads, different ways to pronounce it. And they are female spirits or nymphs of the water. They preside over fountains and wells and springs, streams, brooks, and fresh bodies of water. In Europe, Africa, China, there are stories about mer people, mermen, mer women, mer people. The Greeks have beings that are called sirens, and they are water spirits that guide sailors to safety. There are many, many, many associated water-associated myths. So we've got our practical association with water, and then we have more of spiritual understanding of water. And in addition to that, there's an opportunity, once you learn how to and start practicing a communication with water, there's an opportunity to share prayers and blessings with the water to help clean the water, help clear the water, and help there be a relationship between humans and water, which is something that is essential for us to recognize the importance of in this world. That we will go over in another segment. If you choose to work with water, you can choose to work with a water ally. You can work with a water ally who may present itself to you as a water spirit. Any of the beings that I just mentioned could be an ally for you that help you to connect with water. And water spirits can be worked with for personal healing and global healing. And some of the things that they can help direct us in or guide us in are related to some of the principles that I talked about in the beginning that have to do with water. So I'll give you your spirit practice in a minute. Working with water beings, you can ask them for help for healing yourself. You can ask them for help in clearing the waters, praying for the waters, helping us to restore the waters. And you can talk with them and engage their help around healing in general, physical, emotional, mental, for yourself or someone else. So a water ally, a water spirit that you might connect with can help you in any of the areas that are governed by water. The thing is to be in communication with them. You may have an ally of the water who's a sea fish, an ancestor, or a mystical creature. You may already have an ally that's a water ally working with you so far. Spirit practice. There's two choices. You can do them both if you want. If you are, first spirit practice, first choice, is to consciously engage with the water. The water in your house. Nothing mystical about that. When you communicate with the water hears you. You create a different relationship with it. When you're creating a relationship with the water, you can then hear it back. You can then receive images, information, and messages that are timely for yourself and timely for the planet. So the first spirit practice choice is to consciously engage with the water. Thank it and talk to it. The water that you run for your shower, the water that you use for cooking, the water that you wash your hands with, the water that you drink out of the tap or a filter. Thank the water, bless the water, offer gratitude for it running clean, for it cleansing you and nourishing you. That's the first option for the spirit practice. And really, I'd like you to just do that. I'd like everybody to do that because it'll change everything. Second option is to journey to the water. And you can do this sitting at the water, or you can do this in the journey space. Go to a local lake, go to a local pond, go to a local river, physically and or energetically. And ask to meet a water ally. Ask for the spirits of the water to communicate with you and say, how I'd like to connect with a water ally and journey into the water and ask to meet an ally. When you meet one, you can ask how they might help you with healing, or you can also ask what type of healing or what type of learning can they help you with. It's a second choice for spirit practice. So you've got two choices. You can consciously engage with the water in your everyday life, and I suggest that you do. And or if you journey, you can journey to the water, local lake, pond, river, journeying in your journey space or physically being there. If you don't journey, no problem. You can sit with the water and simply communicate with it and ask it if it has a message for you. Okay, you've got it now. This month is all about water. I look forward to your questions, and I also look forward to hearing in the group how this lands on what you choose to do. Bye for now.